The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Daley. Senator Dugnate. Senator Dondera-Loop. Senator Flores. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond. Senator Hansen. Senator Harris. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Scheibel. Senator Sievers-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Senator Stone. Senator Titus.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please mark Senator Cannizzaro absent excused.
Thank you. Let the record reflect there are 20 senators present. Please rise for the prayer by Pastor Garvin Jarvis of the Living Stones Church here in Carson City, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Proverbs 16, verses 3 and 9 says this: "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Lord God, as I stand and pray for our Nevada senators and their staff, they have been hard at work ahead of today's deadlines for all of their committees, and now they are clearing these hurdles and entering into the final stretches of this legislative session. I believe that through your will, you have appointed them in their jobs and that you have given them wisdom, guidance, and have been with them through this work. And now I pray for everything that they have put together and are continuing to work on, because we know as humans that the best made plans and bills are not guaranteed success despite our most valiant effort. But you instruct us on a way forward, to commit these plans to you so that you would establish them and cause the work of these senators to flourish. So we commit these plans to you, sovereign God, that you would establish their hard work and grant them success in all of their labor, because as they flourish, so will everyone in our state. Through your guidance, they are planning the course of Nevada, so please establish their steps. Bless their work, and whenever they do rest, give them peace and joy in their labor. In Jesus' name I pray for them. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order of Business 3, reading and approval of the journal. By previous order of the Senate, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the President and Secretary are authorized to make necessary corrections and additions. Order of Business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Finance, to which was referred Senate Bill number 244, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Marilyn Dondera-Loop, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Government Affairs, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 210 and 366, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Edgar Flores, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 100 and 154, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator Fabian Dugnate, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 126, 159, and 227, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 13, 286, and 394, and Assembly Joint Resolution numbers 158 and 1 of the 81st session, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator James Orenshaw, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Natural Resources, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 20, 91, and 424, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Also, your Committee on Natural Resources, to which was referred Assembly Concurrent Resolution number 5, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation be adopted. Signed, Senator Julie Pizzina, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 53, 98, 122, and 455, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator Dina Neal, Chair. End of reports.
Order of Business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, May 18th, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Senate Bills numbers 2 and 3 and Senate Joint Resolution number 7 of the 81st session. Also, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly amended and on this day passed as amended Senate Bill number 406, Amendment number 582, and respectfully request your honorable body to concur in said amendment. Signed, Susan Furlong, Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bills number 273 to 464 be taken from their positions on the general file and placed on the general file for the next legislative day.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That concludes Order of Business 9.
Order of Business 12, second reading.
Senate Bill 339, introduced by Senators Dondero, Loop, etc., authorizes the reimbursement of teachers for certain out-of-pocket expenses. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Is there an amendment to the bill?
I have amendment number 550, proposed by the Senate Committee on Finance.
Let's see. Who has that one? SB 339. Senator Dondero Loop.
Just in time. Thank you very much. Mr. President, I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Loop.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Are there any marks? Senator Dondero Loop.
Senate Amendment number 550 to Senate Bill 339 repeals the provisions of the bill and instead replaces them with language to create a grant program within the Department of Education to allow teachers and specialized instructional support personnel to obtain necessary supplies and materials for their classrooms or school operations, respectively. Senate Amendment number 550 allows the Department of Education to enter into an agreement with one or more organizations to administer a program to expand this grant funding. Additionally, Senate Amendment number 550 limits an organization that receives grant money from not expending more than $500 per individual teacher or specialized instructional support personnel unless money from the source other than the grant program money is available, which would allow the organization to expend the money in excess of $500. Lastly, Senate Amendment number 550 defines specialized instructional support personnel and requires any remaining balance from the general fund appropriation to revert to the general fund at the end of fiscal year 2025.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any other amendments?
There are none.
SB 339 as amended is ordered reprinted and grossed into the general file.
Senate Bill 449, introduced by Finance, revises provisions governing structured settlement purchase companies. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
SB 449 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 3, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, revises provisions governing financial reports of the State Permanent School Fund. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 3 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 11, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services, revises provisions governing hospitals. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 11 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 18, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to the Division of Enterprise Information Technology Services of the Department of Administration. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 18 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 32, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary, makes various changes relating to criminal justice. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 32 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 35, introduced by Judiciary, revises provisions governing the access of offenders to telecommunications devices. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 548, proposed by the Senate Committee on Judiciary.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If no objections, so ordered. Senator Scheibel.
I move to adopt Amendment 548 to Assembly Bill 35.
You've heard the motion. Senator Scheibel.
Amendment 548 adds language explicitly including communications between an offender and his or her lawyer as authorized communications under provisions of the bill.
Are there any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any other amendments?
There are none.
AB 35 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Assembly Bill 36, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to veterans. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 36 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 44, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs, revises provisions relating to services for veterans. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 44 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 56, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, revises provisions relating to the operation of certain motor vehicles on certain portions of a highway. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 542, proposed by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt Amendment 542 to Assembly Bill 56.
You've heard the motion. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 542 to Assembly Bill 56 removes vehicles used by mortuary personnel from the definition of coroner vehicle in subsection 6 of Section 1 of the bill.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any other amendments?
There are none.
AB 56 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Assembly Bill 76, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, revises provisions governing civil actions. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 76 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 82, introduced by Assemblywoman Mosca, designates World Esports Day as a day of observance in this state. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 82 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 164, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, revises provisions related to outdoor recreation. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 544, proposed by the Senate Committee on Education.
Senator Lang.
Mr. President, I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adopt Amendment 544 to Assembly Bill 164.
You've heard the motion. Senator Lang.
This amendment makes an existing advisory board on outdoor recreation to also serve as a technical advisory committee established in the Nevada Administrative Code 407A.150 to assist and advise the administrator in the development and administration of the outdoor education and recreational grant program. 2, it adds additional representative from the Department of Wildlife to the advisory work group. 3, it deletes section 1.7, parentheses 1, parentheses C, relating to the representative of the advisory working group from the Office of Minority Health, and amends section 107.1I to appoint 2 providers rather than 1 provider of nature-based education, with 1 provider focused primarily on serving minority and historically underserved communities. And 4, it amends section 107.1H to indicate that a pupil rather than a parent or legal guardian may be appointed to the advisory work group with permission of the parent or legal guardian.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any other amendments?
There are none.
AB 164 as amended is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Assembly Bill 185, introduced by Assemblywoman Mosca, revises provisions governing the education of pupils who are children of military personnel. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
I have amendment number 545, proposed by the Senate Committee on Education.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
If there are no objections, so ordered. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adopt Amendment 545 to Assembly Bill 185.
You've heard the motion. Senator Lang.
This amendment broadens the priority charter school enrollment to a child whose parent or legal guardian is currently a member of the military and adds Senator Buck as a co-sponsor to the bill.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Are there any other amendments?
There are none.
AB 185 as amended is ordered, reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file.
Assembly Bill 189, introduced by Assemblywoman Hadegay, revises provisions governing construction start times in certain counties and cities. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 189 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 219, introduced by Assemblywoman Considine, makes various changes to the open meeting law. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 219 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 251, introduced by Assemblyman Wynn, etc., and Senator Wynn, revises provisions governing prescriptions. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 251 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 265, introduced by Assemblyman Gorlow, etc., and Senator Wynn, etc., revises provisions relating to mental health. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 265 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 274, introduced by Assemblyman Wynn, etc., and Senator Dondera Loop, etc., revises provisions governing required instruction in financial literacy. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 274 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 275, introduced by Assemblywoman Hardy, etc., and Senator Hammond, etc., revises provisions governing the sealing of criminal records. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 275 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 282, introduced by Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, etc., establishes provisions governing a subsidy for certain substitute teachers. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 282 is ordered to general file.
Assembly Bill 291, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary, revises provisions relating to the prosecution of certain crimes. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 291 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 311, introduced by Assemblywoman Bilberry Axelrod, etc., revises provisions governing health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 311 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 318, introduced by Assemblyman Wynn, etc., and Senator Donyate, etc., revises provisions governing certain providers of health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 318 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 350, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary, revises provisions governing forfeiture of property. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 350 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 359, introduced by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, etc., revises provisions relating to the imposition by certain counties of additional taxes on fuels for motor vehicles. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 359 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 372, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Education, revises provisions relating to higher education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 372 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 407, introduced by Assemblyman Carter, revises provisions governing the release of personal information by the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 407 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 426, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, revises provisions governing special event advertising. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 426 is ordered to the general file.
That concludes Order Business 12 and the business of the desk for this legislative day.
Okay, Order Business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. If any of you all have been in my office in the last couple of weeks, you would have seen Regina Suwano. If she's up there in the gallery, would you stand? Regina, can we see you? She's up there. Okay, hello. Regina was a fellow in my office for the last 3 to 4 weeks, participating in a program sponsored by the American Council of Young Political Leaders, the State Department, and a Southeast Asian Fellowship program. She's from Indonesia and is actually an elected official in the at the local level there. And she's gotten the full-on Nevada legislature experience in her couple of weeks here, but today is her last day. And so I just wanted to give her a quick shout out and thank her for all of the work that she's done. If you could all just join me, please, in making her feel welcome.
Any other remarks from the floor? Introduction of guests. All right, seeing none, Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand in adjournment until the hour of 11 a.m. on Monday, May 22nd, 2023.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone as a nay? Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned. See you Monday.